Good morning, guys. Today is Sunday and I have a completely free day today, which is really nice. I've got like no social engagements and not got any plans at all, so I'm going to spend the whole day reading. I am currently reading a couple of books. I'm nearly finished actually Holding by Graham Norton, which I've been buddy reading with Simon, which is on my Kindle, which has just been fun, like really sort of frivolous Irish funny domestic mystery fun. And I'm also listening to The Other Bennett Sister by Janice Hadlow on audiobook, which is good. I normally with audiobooks I feel like I just read them when I like run or something, but I've been really wanting to listen to this, like when I'm cooking, when I'm doing stuff, when I'm eating. Like I've been really drawn to it, so I'm really enjoying that. But I thought today, since I had a clear day and with everything that's been going on, I thought I'd pick up some different books. I've got 3 books here that I want to try and read at least some of today. I obviously will not finish probably even one of them today, but I thought I'd read a kind of range of things. I'm conscious that a lot of you watch these reading vlog videos specifically because you find them quite relaxing, and I also know that the last few weeks have been very difficult and stressful and distressing for a lot of people. So I don't think this video specifically is the forum to be talking about that kind of thing. But I will be doing another specific video soon where I recommend lots of books by Black authors and non-fiction books on racism, how to be anti-racist, colonialism, history lessons, all that kind of thing, so that everybody can increase their knowledge if they feel like they are not informed enough. And if there are other books of that nature that you would like to recommend now that I don't necessarily show in this video, please leave them in the comments below, because you know, it's up to all of us to educate ourselves, and it's up to white people, I think specifically, to try and help spread the word and give out those resources. I don't think we should be going to black people going, teach me please how to not be racist. So let's do that in the comments below. So what I thought I would pick up today is firstly Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This is a middle grade book, I think, and it's written in verse, so I probably will read this quite quickly. I doubt I'll read it all today, but there's lots of illustrations in here as well, and it looks really beautiful. It was shortlisted for the Jalak Prize, and it's about, I believe, a black boy who wants to be, I don't know if it is drag, like being a drag queen, or he wants to perform as the Black Flamingo. The blurb is quite vague, but I've heard really great things about this one, and it's just so beautiful as well. I'm also going to be starting Trumpet by Jackie Kay, which is about a jazz singer who, when he dies, it's discovered that he was a trans man and nobody knew about it. And I've had this for a really long time, but for some reason I've never got to it, and I do find that fascinating. There are like real life examples of people, obviously, who are trans in history and sort of went under the radar until after their deaths. I think that's quite an interesting subject to tackle. I'll be interested to see how it's handled in this book, but I've heard brilliant things about this one. And then on top of that, these are quite varied, these reads. I think it'd be quite a fun day to dip in and out of all of them. Is British by Afua Hirsch, which is non-fiction, and I've had this for a while, but I think that the only reason I haven't picked it up yet is because I read like a few similar books in succession, and when you're reading non-fiction, I think it's good to kind of spread it out over a bit of time, especially if you're reading a lot around the same sort of topic. But Afua Hirsch is a journalist and like broadcaster, and I really like how she speaks, like on Twitter, the best place for all information, obviously, and like she writes columns and she's been on TV programs, and I find her quite interesting and eloquent, and I'd be interested to hear about this idea of what it means to be British and why people ask where you're from when you're not white, basically, even though you and your parents were born in Britain. I think this is a reasonably dense one in terms of the words on the page, so it might take me quite a while to read, but I think these will be a really nice mix to read across today. So I'm going to start with Black Flamingo and see how I get on. I swear it's been about 15-20 minutes and I'm already like 100 pages through this. I almost feel like I need to slow myself down because I'm really enjoying it, and I'm racing through, and I probably will finish it today, to be honest. But yeah, it's great. It's written in verse. There's some really nice illustrations and use of illustration and colour in between the verses. And so far it's about Michael, who's mixed race, growing up with his mum and his half-sister. He's just at secondary school at this point. I think he's like in year 9, where I've got to. And it's him kind of not wanting to come out at school, and also dealing with, you know, a multitude of things that are going on in his life. And yeah, I'm just loving the way it's written. I think it's so simple and beautiful and like honest, but just like in a really nice way. I don't really know how to explain it. I guess it's great because this is for children, and I think it would be so easy to read for a child, but also it's not childish. It feels very honest and emotionally intelligent, and yeah, I'm really liking it. And he's like writing poems at school. He knows that he really likes singing. He just kind of he's just like learning about himself, as we all do when we're teenagers. And he's like getting crushes on boys at school, and it's just, yeah, I really like it. Really like it. So I think I might read a bit more of it now, and then we're gonna have a late brunch. It's 11:30 now, but Will's got a bit of work to do, so he's just gonna finish that off, and then we're gonna have some bacon and eggs. Yummy. Yeah, so I think I'll read some Black Flamingo until we have breakfast, then go on to one of my other books. This might be quite a boring vlog because it's probably going to be me sitting in like the exact same place, just reading a slightly different book. So I might have to change up where I read in the house to make it slightly more interesting. I'm about halfway through Black Flamingo now. I did actually put it down and start reading British because I was just storming ahead. And it's got to the point where he's left school and he's about to go to university. And I'm just really loving it. I'm loving, particularly what's very interesting is him coming to terms with the fact that his father's Jamaican, so he's half Jamaican. He's never been to Jamaica, but the fact that there is so much homophobia in Jamaica, and him feeling as this gay teenager, like if I went to Jamaica, like it would be illegal for me to have sex with a man and all these other things, and he's sort of trying to confront that and work his way through it. And there's also an interesting discussion when they go and visit his mother's family in Cyprus, and the fact that they all speak Greek, and his mother never spoke Greek to him and his sister because she wanted them to be British, and like, but now they feel like they're missing out on that aspect of their culture. There's so many different little nuggets and different thoughts about identity in this. I'm really loving it, so I'm sure I'll pick it up again later in the day. But I did start British as well, which at the moment is very, I'm just in the introduction stage, and this is just after like looking at her own identity in her own childhood, just sort of explaining her position, what it was like for her growing up in a very wealthy suburb of London in Wimbledon, and being one of the only mixed race children there. And so far she's sort of addressing the British tendency to not see race and to be like, oh, race isn't a problem, so therefore we're not racist, and how it's kind of, it was sort of whitewashed, or like put to the back burner, like any thought of identity and race when she was growing up. So this is I'm very early days into this, but I'm going to keep reading this for now. It's about 1:05, so I've got a whole lot of reading day left. actually read the first chapter of British, which is really good. I think it's like 50 pages in or something like that. A good amount into it, yeah, about 45 pages in. And so far I'm really enjoying it. It's quite interesting listening to Atta talk about how privileged her upbringing was and what that was like for her, like being pressured, I suppose, to blend into like a white world, as opposed to one of her friends that she talks about in here, who's from Tottenham, which is a poorer part of London, and has more of a like an immigrant black community. And she talks about the differences in their upbringing, where he really knew who he was, like his family was really rooted in Ghanaian culture, and like he felt African in a way, and he lived it and breathed it. And even though she's from like a wealthier background, she really envies his identity, like his real strong sense of identity that he has. And she's sort of talking in this first chapter about her own identity and her mother's Ghanaian roots, and how she feels like not properly British but also not properly African. And I use quotation marks for African because she's also talking about this idea that the British, or the West I suppose, have as Africa as like one big country, like in terms of one culture, instead of, I think she has 54 different countries and cultures and different people and identities. So yeah, it's very interesting so far. I did, after finishing that chapter, basically just finish Black Flamingo. I went back to it. We just went and sat on the balcony and read for a little bit, although it's getting a bit darker and rainier now, so I've come back inside, and I just loved it. I couldn't stop reading it. I've given it 5 stars. It's brilliantly written, and I love the mix of like poetry and verse and illustrations in this book. I think it's so, it just has so much truth in the way that it's written, and I'm so pleased that it exists as a children's book. I wonder what age range it's really meant for, because we follow Michael through his childhood but into university, which is when he gets involved in drag. But I guess when I was a teenager I was interested in experiences older than myself, so this would be great for someone to read if they're like 14, 15, I should think. So I guess maybe YA-ish. I don't know. I don't really know about definitions of age ranges in books, but I'm so pleased this exists because it's so interesting the way it talks about identity in all forms. And I think that works really well as seeing someone grow from like a boy to a teenager to a man at university. And there's so many different aspects of his identity that he's grappling with, like with his sexuality, with kind of the parts of masculinity and femininity that he wants to inhabit himself, like the person he wants to be, and then also his culture and heritage, his race from both sides of his family. It's really expertly like woven together. Highly recommend it. So I've come inside now, and I think I might read a bit more of British before starting Trumpet, which I want to read later. I'm really impressed with how much I've read so far. I think this was a good decision to sort of jump between fiction and non-fiction, because I am really enjoying Atta's writing, but it's, you know, it's hard to read a lot of non-fiction in one go. So I'm feeling like I'm enjoying my reading, but also feeling quite productive because I'm getting a lot read of different books. It's one of those weird paradoxes where it's been a very chill, very nice, slow day, but because we've not really done anything, at the same time it feels like it's gone really quickly, because it's like nearly 4 o'clock now or something. Yeah, 4 o'clock. I'm like, oh, that's the end of the day and we gotta go to work tomorrow. But it's been lovely to be quite slow today. Cooking up some rice for our dinner that we're going to have with some bolognese that I made a couple of nights ago. I'm suddenly starving. I feel like I've forgotten to eat really today, and now suddenly I'm like, oh my god. And I've also come over with a strong craving to watch Bridget Jones's Baby, like specifically, so hopefully I can convince Will to watch that later. I have started Trumpet after reading another chapter of British, and I'm actually really appreciating it. I think when you read a lot of different books all in one go, it really highlights the different styles, and I guess Black Flamingo was quite fast paced because it was in verse and because it was relatively simple language, but also it's all full of teenage thoughts. It was quite intense and quick. And British, because it's about, oh, I don't know, it's non-fiction, but it's about so many like interesting and urgent things. Like the chapter I've just read is all about, I guess, how Britain doesn't understand its own place in the slave trade and the history of slave trade and the empire and things like that. So it feels very urgent when you're reading it. And Trumpet, by contrast, has been very slow. Like, it's almost like I'm in the habit of trying to read through these sentences very quickly, and as soon as I opened Trumpet I was like, oh gosh, no, it's forcing me to slow down and take it in, which is nice. So I guess it's opening with Joss Moody, who's a trumpet player, having died, and it's from his widow's perspective, and she's run off to a little cottage in Scotland and is remembering how they got together, and how she like discovered upon meeting him that he had been born a woman. And it's just like that. I think I've just in the first sort of 20-30 pages or something so far, and so it's very, very early days, but I'm liking the style. And I'm finding it quite sad, obviously, because she's dealing with grief as well and remembering like her life. Yeah, so I'm glad I've started that. I think I'll probably read some more of it while I'm waiting for dinner. Yeah, and then have a nice evening. I really just want to watch a sort of trashy, fun film and eat crisps. Basically, that's the Sunday I would like. So hopefully it's the Sunday I will get.